This video isn't gonna be personal. This is a pure and simple addressing something I was just talking about in a string about being a lawyer, or I was a lawyer in the United States judicial system, and what's really going on in the judicial system. Facebook already is trying to not let me post things. I start to post it and then it keeps on disappearing. It's weird. It looks like someone's taking over my computer every time I talk about the American Judicial System. So I'm sure I'm saying things. I was telling someone today, and I'm not breaking any, again, I handed in my law license. I practiced for 15 years in Washington, D.C. I was a lawyer. I handed in my law license. I got nothing. I left with nothing. So I have no money motivation. I'm broke right now. I have nothing. I don't have a savings. I don't have that. I don't own anything. I don't own a house. So if any old client is watching this thinking they're going to sue me, go right ahead. I have maybe $5,000 to my name, including property. Let's start like that, because I know that people are going to come after me because people hear the word lawyer, because I decided to do a legal career like ethically, and I didn't make as much money as I could have if I didn't. I would say, so I practiced in Washington, D.C. from 2006 until first week of November this year. And a lot of that time, I guess 8 years of those, I had my own practice. When you have your own practice, you advertise and you try to give your specialties and you get referrals. However, I always tell people, like, if you sell pizza and you like a pizza, you tell your neighbor to go buy a pizza, and then the next day or the next week, their family's hungry and they buy a pizza, and that's a referral, right? Because that's how businesses work. Well, in the law, like, you get a divorce and then you tell your friends you had a good attorney, and that wraparound might take years. So a lot of my referrals happen 5-6 years after the original client, because that's the way it works. So I did an extensive amount of advertising, and when you have a solo practitioner, you kind of pick and choose what you can take. So when times are lean, you kind of expand your practice areas, because as attorneys we were taught to learn law quick. It's just following the law, manipulating it to your own means. I'm going to repeat that. It's just getting a statute. I sit there with a red liner and I look at every word and I say how that word can work for me, not them. Even if I know that the law supports the other side, it's my job, my sworn job as a lawyer, to manipulate that law to win. Zealous advocacy. It doesn't matter if I'm right. And I'm sitting there, I run a business, whoever walks in. And sometimes, like, I wouldn't take clients that, were obviously bad people. But sometimes you don't know until a month in, you start looking over their documents, because manipulative people are manipulative. So like 50% of the time I'm stuck with sociopaths, okay? And that's another thing that's kind of why I started to post this in the first place. I would say in my career, I probably had 1,000 cases. My core practice at the beginning was family law, and I don't mind I didn't mind it that I had no moral deficit with that. In the last 2 years, I only did fathers' rights, only fathers' rights. Fathers have it hell in this system. The mothers get free attorneys. All they have to say is the words domestic violence. They have to have, they can be the worst parents ever. And all they have to say is domestic violence. So I'm always going up against a free attorney who is usually like a jaded, I'm like, your client's a piece of shit, and then my client has to end up spending so much money on me. And I used to bill half time anyway, but still these men couldn't afford, because a child custody dispute, the only way to win for a man in this country, I'm telling you, the only way to win is file motion, break it down. And that it's not, people think that you file suit like Law and Order, you walk in and you argue it and you win it and yay. No, it takes years of filing motions, and nobody wants to pay $450 an hour, because that's the market rate of lawyers in DC. To file a bunch of motions, and then they accuse you of taking their money. And I'm like, this is a long game. I can get you custody, but it's going to take a lot of hard work over 2 years. And in all honesty, it probably would be 70. I was too generous with my billing practices. This is why I'm broke now. But, a good child custody case, if a father wants to win, it's going to cost well over $100,000. And I used to bill half of my time. Most fathers' rights attorneys like me, I'm saying, I used to have clients yell at me all the time, like, I can't afford to pay you, you're fleecing me. And I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea, I've just been up 2 nights. in a row for you. Like I didn't sleep last night to file these motions because the only way you're ever going to get your kid is if I file all these motions that I know you don't understand, because the judicial system was set up so you don't understand what the hell I'm doing. But I'm telling you that the means to the end is this motion, this motion, this motion needs to be filed. We need to set up the case like this, create the record, create the record, create the record. It's all about creating the record. The record is what happened. It's like our history books in school. It's history books. In law, it's creating a record. The first time a client walks into my desk, I'm like, let's create a good record. The first filing, you have to get into evidence what you can use against them. Everything I look at after I take a child custody case was, what can I slap an exhibit sticker on and use against this person? Like, let's just develop a record. It's very devious. I would say the whole 15 years I practiced, I did do corporate for a little bit in there, in the middle. I had my own firm. I did civil rights. Let me back up. I started as a prosecutor during law school, so that's where I got my courtroom experience. And then I did civil rights for a year and a half, actually against DC public schools, special education under IDEA's Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, IDEA. And I like that. I like that a lot. I was helping kids, but then after that I opened my own firm, and then you become you take what walks in the door. So at the beginning, it was a lot of child custody cases. I got custody for a lot of people who didn't deserve custody because judges like me, and I'm good at creating records. So, and I didn't know they were the worst parent until halfway through, and it's very hard for lawyers to get out. Plus, it's our job. So every time we see a little moral deficit in someone, we can't keep dumping them or we'll be broke, because everyone thinks they have a point, and this world's full of like a bunch of sociopathic narcissists. And in the end, I told you I was representing only fathers, so I'm going against pro bono attorneys, these liberal nuts in DC. These women are crazy. They think that women deserve their kids no matter what. When I left, and he's mad at me, which is fine. He threatened to sue me because he said I charged him too much and he had custody. I couldn't get him his child from a woman on PCP. Because she knew how to work the system. He had a baby with the wrong woman in the hood to save her. And he wanted to raise the child because the child was being raised around drugs and being neglected. But he paid, he didn't make that much money. He paid $1,500 of child support a month. And she just used it to buy drugs and do her nails. She didn't work. That was our income, public assistance and that. And then he wanted custody of the kid, and I couldn't get it because the system, she got a free attorney. So I'm battling against a free attorney. So every motion I file, I'm paying. They're filing motions too. And then I have to respond to the motions. So bill, hour. I don't know how else to do this. I'm trying to get you your kid. Do you want your kid or not? This is what it's going to be. I can't do all this pro bono. I'm already not making much money because I'm an ethical lawyer. I never cracked the $100,000 mark for myself ever. I don't know if I ever made more than $80,000 a year after expenses, after write-offs, after uncollectibles. There were a few years I was making, because I'm ethical. Like I could totally have made $1 million. When I closed down the firm, it was heading toward in the millions, and starting to do that, I decided to withdraw because I looked at my caseload and there was one client of 30 that I thought should even have a lawyer, deserved a lawyer. So in the end, people started coming in, whatever. We used a matching service called Legal Match. I paid $700 a month to get leads. And I worked in Washington, D.C., and majority of the leads that were coming in were employees suing the government for discrimination. Okay? I probably did, in the last 2 years, 200 of them. I would say 3 maybe 3, maybe 2 had real cases. They're all people who just repeatedly sued the federal government because the federal government is inundated with discrimination cases, and they have whole teams of lawyers. Your tax money is going toward a whole team of lawyers to fight discrimination cases that aren't valid, even slightly valid. These people are they couldn't even. They're lawyer, and I'm bound to secrecy. I'm bound to disclosure. I'm like, well, why were you? I don't get, why were you discriminated against? And behind closed doors, basically they would make the argument. I'd be like, look, dude, I'm awake. Level with me. And they'd be like, no, because the law says I can collect. Because the law is written that if you basically feel discriminated against, you can probably collect, because the federal government is inundated with these cases Every agency has maybe 3 or 4 attorneys working on that. I sued every federal agency in DC. I know a lot about, in the federal government and DC government. They're inundated with cases. These lawyers, they can't really concentrate on them, so they settle them all out. So all you have to do is repeatedly say that the government's discriminating against you based on any protected class. And eventually you'll start ching-ching, ching-ching. You get promotions. They give you free offices. I've negotiated offices on upper floors for federal employees, settlements, new jobs, work, anything just to settle these cases out, because the court system is not about litigating. It's about settling cases out. So I bet you, if I stuck myself in my clients' positions and I take out child custody, because everyone deserves the right to fight for their child, so everyone deserves a lawyer, I would say of all my clients that I've ever had, maybe 5% should have gone to a lawyer. If I was in their position, I would have gone to a lawyer. The rest, I would have been like, what is my behavior? How can I change my behavior? How can I make this situation better? What am I doing wrong in this situation? I would collaboratively worked it out, because I did a lot of, first off, the discrimination against the government. Half of those was just cha-ching, 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 like, oh my God, this white person looked at me the wrong way. However, they looked at someone else the wrong way, and I don't like something they posted on the internet. Let's go after them because I can get, a year's salary. I can get leave on this. I can get this. And the other thing that I was doing a lot of was people who, oh my God, the federal government has a merit system that you can't get fired. You can't, I can't say you can't, because that's what I did for a while. I was defending people who are trying to get people their jobs back who didn't. And I'm not talking about, if anybody's watching this as an old client, I'm not talking about you, okay? Don't think I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm talking about the system. So I'm not breaking any privileges here. But they sued the government to get their job back after they were fired for being horrible employees, because the government protects you. Like, I had people abscond from work in the middle of the night and do that. They would be documented, and they're like, oh no, they're just documenting against me because they're racist. I'm like, no, you're a bad worker. But then the minute they say they were racist, Title VII, but other protections. I'm not going to talk law because I hate the law now, but other protections come in, and then they get a lawyer. So I would say that in all reality, I would seriously, so there's 3 types of law. There's criminal law. And everybody thinks, when they think lawyer or law, they think criminal law. I did that for, 1 year back in 2004 or 5. So I haven't been involved in anything criminal. I've done a little domestic violence, but nothing criminal. That's a very small part. That's what they show on TV, but that's not most lawyers. Most lawyers are civil litigators, civil lawyers. And I would say 90% of the cases in court right now are frivolous. However, in my mind, in God's mind, frivolous, because nobody has a case. It's a normal human dispute that 2 humans who were reasonable should have worked out. One of them might have been so it's either, every case is either a plaintiff who's opportunistic, because the plaintiff starts a case, or it's just a normal dispute that it doesn't belong in the system, and TV is normalized as, I'll sue you. And people used to come into my office. I used to talk people out of it. I'm like, you do understand that you think you're going to run in like Law and Order? We might not ever get in front of a jury. And if we do, it might be 3 and 4 years from now. Because it doesn't work like that. It's slow. It's inefficient. It's a bunch of motions. We do everything. The law has become who can be best at this procedurally. That's it. Who can out-procedure the other. That's really what it comes down to. Who can file the right motions. Who can bleed the other, whoever. The first thing I thought of when I got a new client, I said, how rich is your ex? Because we can bleed them out, or you know what I mean? When I did women, that's the first thing I asked. I'm like, let's just keep on filing motions. Because again, zealous advocacy. So if there's a motion there, I can file it. And if money's to our advantage, I will keep doing that. Corporations do that all the time. We call burying in motions. So people ask me why I've given up my legal career. And I'm going to talk a lot about my legal career, but that's the tip of the iceberg. That's what my daily life looked like. I actually, needed a paralegal a few times. I had some friends do paralegal type of work for me, close friends had never had it. And they're like, oh my God, this is what you do all day. What's this person's problem? I used to talk to my assistant like that. Like, I forget what this person's problem is. Like, they didn't have problems. And the irony here is, if you're looking at me like, you lawyer, why are you doing this? I used to tell them not to go to me. I used to be like, you don't have a case. I wouldn't do this. Like, well, the law says. I'm like, yeah, I can win it for you. Sure, I'll take it. The morally repugnant ones I didn't take, but most of them I'm like, cool, yeah, the law gives you a right to sue for this. If you really want to sue, if you really feel like, because in the government, all you have to do is say you feel discriminated against, and have some statistics, and you are entitled to a free, call it ROI, report of ROI, a 500-page document at the end. The government hires an investigator, a third-party investigator, who interviews everyone. So if I just said, that man over there, he looked at me funny, and I feel discriminated against, shh, call a lawyer. Okay, I'll take the case. So next thing that has to happen is an investigation has to be made. An outside person is hired for that investigation. The government pays for a 500-page investigation every time that happens. Most of my clients that came to me, most of my calls, and I didn't take a lot of cases, it was their third, fourth, fifth time suing the government. That's all they did. I had one that had 18 cases against the government. I think it's a moneymaker. It's a good way to get up in your career in the government, because the government is really scared of you when you keep suing them, and then they make your life really easy at work. They stop asking you to do things. They're like, yeah, sure, you can telework, because I'm sure behind the scenes the managers are like, if we say no to this woman, she's going to say we're racist, so let's just let her telework. Okay, she didn't do any work. She didn't sign on to her email for a week. We don't think she's actually working. We think she's hanging out, in a bar all day. But let's not bother her, because she'll say it's racist. And that's really, I can see that's going on, because I became friendly with some of the government attorneys, and you don't understand. Attorneys just talk like what the fuck is going on here? When two awake attorneys are in a room, we're like, why are we here? Why are we here? And I had a few awake attorneys and there's not many of us, but the 2 or 3 that I came across in my career, we'd sit down, me and the opposing attorney. I'd be like, seriously, what's your client's problem? Like, what's the problem? And sometimes we're like, look, the law says that they can get money, and I am working under the law. I'm obligated to work under the law. So even if the law is ridiculous, I'd laugh about it. Like, yeah, this is ridiculous. I can get money, but the law needs to be changed. And I'm a lawyer, not a legislator. So I just follow the law as it's written. And I know it's ridiculous, but my client's entitled to money now because the law's written like this, and it's easier for the government then to just accommodate people who are trouble employees, because it costs them probably, I don't know, I bet you some of these people cost the government $100,000 a year, and they're only getting paid $80,000 for their salary just to defend frivolous lawsuits, because, they have to defend. So, among the other reasons of giving up law, that's why I did. I'm going to post this. I bet you it's going to take so long to post, because Facebook, every time I say the word law, they upload the video, and in the middle of uploading it usually stops, and I see someone else. It looks like someone else is like stopping the download, and it goes to finalize, and then it freezes, and then I have to do it all over again. But I am very persistent, and I'm going to keep on pressing. I'm going to keep on uploading it until it gets uploaded. I'll go on another phone, I'll go on another computer, I'll go on another Wi-Fi. I've shut down my Wi-Fi to upload these things, because it seems like the upload itself is being interrupted midway through. It looks like another mouse is moving around on my computer. Don't know much about technology. I'm in the middle of nowhere, but that's been a problem with me. Once I get this part done talking, I have to post it, and sometimes that has been a challenge. It's pretty early in the morning, so I should be getting this out. So that's, I'll be talking more about the judicial system, but that's my overall primer on the judicial system in America right now.